Hey everyone, today we're going to show you how to install the 2014 Plus Tundra front bumper. This video will be for both the Overland series front bumper and the Hybrid series front bumper. The install process will be the same for both. So this is the Overland series bumper here that we have on the floor ready to put onto the truck. So we're going to show you the parts and pieces and hardware that come with the bumper. So of course we have the bumper itself, and then back here we've got the support brackets, one for each side, passenger and driver. Those bolt to the bottom of the frame where the tow hooks were, and then to the side of the bumper. And the hardware that comes with the bumper is all laid out here. So you've got 6 grade 8 flat washers, 1/2 inch for each side, 2 1/2 by 1.5 flange bolts, 2 1/2 inch flange nuts. All that is the same for each side. And then we've got 8 3/8 grade 8 flat washers, and then 2 plugs for the park sensor holes. So those plugs will be used for the Overland series bumper only. If you do not have park sensors on your truck, then those plugs will go in these holes here to cover those up. The hybrid bumper has an option to order with or without mounts for the park sensors. So this bumper has all been powder coated and it's ready to put on the truck. If you have a winch, light bar, fog lights, all of those items that you want to install on the bumper, you'll want to do that first before putting the bumper onto the truck. And this particular one we're doing today does not get any of those extras right now, but the winch mounts in here, fair lead plate goes here, and then we've got pockets for Baja Design Squadron fog lights there, and then mounts for Baja Design's S8 30-inch light bar if you got that option with your bumper. If you'd like to see more details on where those bolt in and actually see what the lights and winch look like in the bumper, you can visit our install instructions for the Forerunner Overland series front bumper or the Tacoma Hybrid series front bumper. We show in those videos where the lights are mounted, how the winch fits in there, and all that stuff will be the same for this bumper as well. All right, so the first thing we're going to start taking apart is this inner liner behind the front bumper here. So we want to get this piece taken out first. So there's a few screws that hold that in. Got one here, here, these 2 along here with this little mud flap deal. There's a plastic clip back on the frame here that you have to pop out. And then going along the bottom side, a screw here, here, and this small one here. And so we're going to start with removing all those first and pop this inner liner out. We got all of our screws out, and now we just need to pop up these plastic clips off of the bumper to get that inner panel out. So you can stick a small screwdriver in there, pry up on it, and then push it away from the bumper. And they should just unclip from there. And then that inner plastic part will be ready to remove from the fender well. So we've got our inner fender liner removed. The next thing you're going to want to do, disconnect the fog lights. So you'll squeeze down on this clip here, pull the connector down to disconnect that. And then we've got a couple more screws to remove because we want to take this outer plastic off next. So you're going to go inside here. There's one screw here that'll take a 10mm wrench up top, remove that. There's a plastic clip here that you have to pop loose from the top. And then another screw right here that needs to be removed with a 12mm wrench. And then you can come along the bottom and pop loose these plastic clips as well along the bottom. And then after that, we'll move up to the grill and take that out next. So one more thing before we move on to removing the grill from the front of the truck is we also want to pop this connector out so this wire isn't connected to this steel structure anymore. because this needs to be removed later on. So you can use a small flathead screwdriver in there and get in between here and just pop that clip off of the steel so this wire is hanging freely. And then this specific truck is not equipped with park sensors, but yours may be. And if it does have them, there's going to be one in each corner right in this area. So there'll be one here and then one on the driver's side right in that same spot. So if you do have them, we'll have to remove those now from those bumper corners before the bumper can be removed. So we've got one on our bench here. This is a steel bumper corner. It's got a park sensor in it. This particular one is broken. Normally it has a little ringer on the outside, but that's where they're located, right above the fog light there. And we're going to show you on the inside how those come out. So you'll have a wiring harness that plugs into this end. There's clips on each side. You're going to squeeze those down and pull the wires to disconnect. And then this plastic clip here, you'll have to pry that off, slide it back, and then the clip can be removed. Typically, you want to push it through the front of the bumper to get it out. So you want to push down on it and then kind of maneuver it around through there to get it through the hole and out the front of the bumper. So once those sensors are removed, then everything is ready and all disconnected. So now we can move on to popping the grill loose, and then we'll finish taking the whole bumper cover off. So we're getting ready to remove the grill from the front of the truck. This particular one does not have Toyota Safety Sense, so it doesn't have any of the sensors in the front here. But if yours does have that, one thing to remember as we're getting ready to remove the grill is that the sensor could be right here in the big Toyota logo, or it could be down low if it's a TRD Pro. There's a square sensor down there. So once the grill is popped loose, you're gonna have to reach down in there and unplug the wiring from that sensor and put the wiring off to the side before you take the grill off the front of the truck. So you wanna pop the hood open, and then there's just a few clips and screws, one here by the headlight, and then there's 4 screws across the top, these 2 on each side. Those are going to take a 10mm socket, and then another plastic clip here. That's all that holds the grill in the top. The rest of the grill, there's a connector kind of in the corner here, and then some clips along the bottom. So essentially you just pull straight back on the grill and it'll pop loose from all of those locations, and then the grill will come out. So the screws and clips are out. We're ready to pop it off. We just want to show you guys what you need to do here. You kind of have to lift up on the grill a little bit and pull it forward to get it unhooked from these little plastic things that stick up right there. So you want to lift and pull forward a little bit on the top first, and then the bottom's ready to pop loose. So you got to give a pretty solid pull to get the ones on the bottom to break loose, but they will just pop loose when you pull straight forward on it. Once those all come out, you can pull straight forward on the grill and it'll come out. So now our grill is out. We're going to remove this support structure just because it's easier to get to all the screws along the inside of the plastic. 10mm socket and an electric impact will do that pretty quick. So just pull straight up on that support. So now you have access to all of these screws along the top. Those are also 10mm socket, and then there's one plastic clip here as well. So this little center clip here, this one you'll actually want to go up with the center of it. Get in there and pry up on it, pop that out, and then the whole clip will come out. And then there are 2 more screws kind of hiding under this support piece here. There's one right here on each side, so you want to get a 10mm wrench in there, remove each one of those screws, and then the entire cover and the bumper corners will all be ready to come off. All of our hardware and clips have been removed, so we're gonna just go ahead and pull the bumper cover off. It should come straight forward and right off the truck. So once the cover has been removed, the next thing we're gonna want to move on to taking apart is getting this entire, we need to get this entire steel structure off here, which is all connected to this center aluminum crash bar. So that entire piece is all going to come off. So to remove that, you want to get in here and get these 3 nuts off of each side. You're going to use a 17mm socket for those. So there's 3 here, 3 on that side. Get those nuts completely removed, and then this entire piece will come off the front of the truck. So we got those 6 nuts removed from the center crash bar there. So this entire piece is ready to come off now. You kind of have to give it a little wiggle to break it loose, and then it should slide forward and come off. So the next pieces we need to remove are these little frame adapter brackets there. So you'll get in here with 14mm socket or wrench and remove these 3 here on the outside and this one on the inside. You do that on both sides, remove both of those brackets. And we also need to remove the factory tow hooks as well. So this one needs to come off and this one needs to come off. Those are both 17mm socket to remove those. So we got the mounting brackets removed from the frame right here on both sides. Also remove the tow hooks from the bottom. You're gonna wanna keep all of this original hardware. We're gonna reuse that to install the bumper. Now we can go ahead and put this support bracket back on that was underneath the grill. So you can put that on right now and just reattach it with all the original nuts. And once that's in place, you can go ahead and reinstall the grill as well. And then we'll be ready to put the bumper on the truck. So we got our brace reinstalled down here. That's all good to go. Now we're gonna show you how to put the grill back in real quick. The main thing to focus on is these little pins here. We're gonna make sure that they line up with this hole underneath the headlight. So we wanna get those aligned and in the hole as you put the grill back on. So once those are both in place, you can essentially just need to lift up on the top of the grill to get it back over those clips. And then you'll just push on it along the bottom to get all of those round clips put back and secured back in the hole. So once those are all pushed back in, you want to put your plastic clip in here and then all of your screws along the top for those total, and your grill will be reinstalled. We've got our front bumper in place and we're getting ready to lift it up onto the front of the truck and install it. So we just have the bumper sitting in front of the vehicle ready to go, and then we're going to show you, you want to use the factory nuts that came off of the Tundra. You're going to want to put these grade 8 flat washers on first after the bumper is on the truck. Put the washer on and then install the factory nut back onto these mounting studs here right on the front of the frame. So that's where the bumper is going to go. We're going to lift it up, align it onto these, and then install a washer and a nut onto each one of those studs. You want to just loosely install those at first. I got enough to hold my side. So we got the bumper lifted up into place. We installed all the factory nuts and the grade 8 flat washers that we send with the bumper. So there's 3 on the outside on each side of the truck, and then 1 on the inside as well. You can see right there, and that one has a grade 8 washer on it as well. So we put all those on and just kind of snugged them down a little bit. They're not fully tightened yet. And then you're going to want to adjust the bumper side to side to make sure your reveal is the same all the way around, and that the bumper isn't higher on one side than the other. We typically adjust ours so we've got about a 1/2 inch clearance here between bumper and the fender right there. So you want to get those adjusted the same on both sides. And once that's done, then you can tighten down that original hardware, and those you can tighten down to 55 foot-pounds for those right there. Next thing we're going to do is install the extra support brackets that go from the frame to the bumper. So the front bumper support brackets will go on next. There's one for each side, passenger and driver over there. And so what's going to come with these, we got the bracket itself, of course, then we've got 2 1/2 by 1.5 flange bolts with grade 8 flat washers, 2 1/2 inch flange nuts with grade 8 flat washers for the inside. And then we're going to use the original bolts that held the tow hooks in place to go up through the bottom. And we're going to put grade 8 flat washers on those first as well. So this bracket here is going to come up, and it's going to attach to the bottom of the frame where the original tow hooks were located. And then the supplied hardware is going to go through these 2 bolts through the bracket and into the bumper through the support bracket. So we've got our bumper support brackets up in place with all the hardware in place. So we held this up in there, and then the 1/2 by 1.5 bolts, flange bolts, go through here with grade 8 flat washer and a nut on the inside. And then factory tow hook bolts here with 1/2 inch grade 8 flat washer. So you want to install all that hardware loosely so that you can get them all started first, and then align this bracket so that it's flush against the side of the bumper here, and it's nice and flat up to the bottom of the frame before you start tightening the hardware. So the original bolts here you can torque to 85 foot-pounds, and then the 1/2 inch flange bolts can be torqued to 50 foot-pounds. So we've got both of those bumper support brackets installed now. All the hardware is tightened down. And the other thing to mention too is it doesn't matter if you have TRD Pro skid plate or factory skid plate. These brackets can either go right on top of the Pro skid plate, like we have this one. We just have the skid plate sandwiched in between the frame and the bracket. It works fine that way if you have a Pro skid plate. If you have the original skid plate, then these brackets will just go directly up to the frame, and the skid plate is not pinched in between. So either one will work just fine. The other thing that needs to be done to finish the install is if you do not have park sensors, then you want to install these plugs that we supply. So these plugs will go right into the provided park sensor hole if you do not have sensors. So you just push them right into that hole, and that's where those go. If you do have park sensors, then you'll want to install the sensor into the hole and use the factory plastic clip on the back to clip in and hold the sensor in place. And also, if you do not have aftermarket fog lights or anything to install in the corners, then you'll want to make sure you tie this wiring up so it's not just hanging loose. What we usually do, we'll tuck it up in here and hook it behind these other wires, and then you can zip tie those cables together and up into this one to hold it in place so it's not dangling behind the bumper. So once all of your hardware is fully tightened down, and then you've got your park sensors in place or your plugs, depending on which option you have on your truck, The only final things you would need to do is wire up your light bar and winch if you have those in your bumper. So you may want to pop the grill out again if it's easier to run wires behind there. That can be done as well. But that's the only last thing to finish up is wiring and making sure your bolts are all tight. And that concludes the install video for the Tundra, Overland, and Hybrid Series front bumpers.